ladies and gentlemen, if you would find your seats for our last presentation of the day before we show our movie at 6 o'clock. I wanted to introduce Tara Bradford of Deliver Fund. Since 2000, Tara Bradford has been administratively involved in the nonprofit sector as a board member, executive director, and special events director. Tara graduated from the University of North Dakota with degrees in psychology and elementary education. Prior to joining Deliver Fund as a senior vice president, her life has been focused on working with children and vulnerable populations as a Title I school teacher and the founder of the nonprofit FACES, which stands for Foster Adoptive Community Empowerment Support, providing support to foster and adoptive families in Montana. Tara's personal history, as well as being a transracial adoptee and adoptive parent, gives her meaningful insight into the vulnerable populations targeted by human traffickers. As a mother of 5 children, she is passionate about helping parents and children understand the dangers this evil presents in our world today, and believes Deliver Fund is the needed solution to help law enforcement bring human traffickers to justice and protect our loved ones from becoming victimized. Please join me in welcoming Tara Bradford.
Thank you for staying to the end. You all are the winners because you stayed till the very last session. And I appreciate that. I know it's been a very long day. It's been a very heavy day. How many people just feel kind of like this weight on them after listening to everything today? Yeah, I do too. And I work in this, this arena. And so if you think about how heavy it feels to us, think about how it feels to a victim day in and day out. It's insurmountable, the amount of heaviness that they probably feel in comparison to what we're feeling today. So if you need to take a deep breath, take a deep breath. We're in the home stretch here. And I was asked here to come and present on raising children in a digital age. We all know that children are growing up in America during this digital age. And the reality is that they're starting to fall prey to this evil called human trafficking. This is a notebook for a 12-year-old girl at the time when she was first trafficked. Her name was Samantha. That's not her true name, obviously, but Samantha was trafficked in her hometown in the desert Southwest when she was 12 years old. This is the rule book that Samantha was asked to live by. When she was enslaved by her trafficker, it was beat into her that the only value she had was when she sold her body for sex. And this book of rules was very specific. Any violations would result in beatings or worse. The trafficker isolated her from her family, and she was taught that daddy, which is what her pimp required her to call him, was the only one who would take care of her. And you notice how they use the term daddy. They want to be called daddy because they're taking advantage of that trauma bond and they're establishing a familial relational bond. Also with the boyfriend situation that we'll talk about more later. Samantha was trafficked in her hometown for 10 years. And law enforcement just saw her as a prostitute. But the reality is that Samantha needed somebody to see her for what it was, which was sex trafficking. Somebody who was being sold for another person's gain. So sex trafficking is not a problem that only happens in other countries, as you've heard throughout the day. It's alive and well and thriving here today in the United States. And it's really important that we understand how we fight it. And it's testament to you being here today to take that step. So some of these will be repetitive because you've heard this throughout other presentations today, but I also think it's really good. The more you hear it, the more it becomes memory, the more you can regurgitate it. So we know that human trafficking is the act of recruiting, transporting, transferring, harboring, or receiving by the means of force, fraud, or coercion for the purposes of either sexual exploitation or some kind of forced labor. Today I'm going to focus on sex trafficking because even though it's a smaller percentage than labor trafficking, it's the highest profitability compared to labor trafficking. And selling sex requires being advertised, so it's out in the open, whereas labor trafficking is hidden under the guise of a business. The trafficker is the supplier, the victim is the commodity being sold, and the buyer is the demand for that commodity. Sex trafficking, we believe at Deliver Fund, thrives. When you look at it from an academic and business lens, it thrives because of the low risk for traffickers being caught, but the high profitability gain that they have. So we've heard throughout the day again some mentions of vulnerability. Vulnerable populations really are teenagers. They're our most vulnerable population at the very base of human trafficking. The average age, according to the DOJ, is 12 to 14 years old of being trafficked. 94%, again, according to DOJ, are girls. So we are seeing some studies that are starting to show that that percentage is starting to get a little bit smaller, and there's a higher percentage starting of boys as well. We've talked about throughout the day from other presenters, low self-esteem plays a huge part in this. Relational issues with a child's parents, people who are runaways, children who are homeless. Maybe they're in the foster care system or they've aged out of the foster care system. Our LGBTQ children, children who come from a history of abuse or some other type of trauma, they're all risk factors. And when you start as a teenager and you start to layer on an additional risk factor, it gets higher and higher, more likely that a child's going to become a victim. Our executive director, Nick McKinley, grew up here in Montana. He entered the Air Force, went into PJ school, and then ended up as a CIA country chief. And he saw human trafficking occurring, and he thought, what are we doing here in the United States? And he couldn't find an answer. And it actually was the factor that caused him to retire early from the CIA and start Deliver Fund, because he wanted to see a proven solution that could work. His article that he wrote for the Huffington Post said it well. Many of the world's greatest technological advancements happened on our watch, but so did the advancement of the world's greatest evil, human trafficking. If we look around today, we know children are growing up in the digital age. There was a documentary put out called Screenagers. And this is a common scene. If you go to malls, if you go to middle schools, high schools, children are walking around with this third appendage called a cell phone. And it's just very common that kids have these today. But like Andrea mentioned in her presentation about the neon sign, this technology provides an open door into the home of our children, into our homes, and into the lives of our children specifically. Pew Research found that 95% of kids ages 12 to 17 use the internet. And then of this group, 81% of them use social media. Does that surprise anybody? You've heard Backpage mentioned quite a bit throughout the presentations today. Backpage is used to advertise sex. They have a section on there that allows these advertisements to be displayed. And purchasing sex, as we now have probably figured out, has moved from the street corner to the internet. And why? For a variety of reasons, but high volume of advertisement, very cheap, because Backpage, it's actually free to put up the ad, but then you start to get charged if you want to keep your ad up at the top rather than it getting buried. So Backpage actually has profited quite hugely and significantly from this business. They're the largest online market for commercial sex. They were last valued at more than $500 million company. And NCMEC has reported that 73% of their child sex trafficking reports have related back-to-back page ads. It's quite astounding. Interestingly, the pimps are the ones who typically, in terms of sex trafficking, the pimps are the ones who will post the ads, but they get to remain anonymous because it's not their face or their body on the ad, is it? It's their victim. So what about here in Missoula? Well, in Missoula, according to one of our partners, Marinus Analytics, in 2016, you had 6,409 sex ads. Now, those are not all individual separate sex ads. Those are ads that are massage parlors. Those are ads that are repeating of the same individual, but that number shows you that there's actually a demand here for it. In 2017, it rose up to 7,799 sex ads, and that made you the second highest in Montana for both years. Billings is actually the first in the state, and that's because they have such a high number of massage parlors there as compared to other cities in the state. Let's talk a little bit about traffickers and technology. Why do traffickers use technology? Well, they use technology because smartphones are portable, iPads are portable, they're small, they're easy to use. Allows them to evade law enforcement detection. There's that anonymity piece again. They can hide behind the sex ad. Their face isn't plastered all over the internet, nor is their body. They also take technology and they utilize it to scout, reach, and locate their victims. Phone locking that we have now with passcodes and whatnot, that actually complicates the evidence collection for law enforcement. They can send it off to forensic companies who will be able to pull that data, but the phone locking system, as you heard with iPhone in the last couple of years in trying to obtain information from it, Apple was not cooperative. So there's more hoops and it delays law enforcement's ability to actually get the information that they're looking for. So technology's role in sex trafficking, a pimp can give his victim a phone and he can turn on the GPS tracking. He can sit in a hotel room, or he can sit in his car, or he can sit wherever he wants to. He can even be in another state. And he can see where his commodity is at all times. So it allows him to keep track of their whereabouts. They also utilize it for encrypted communication. So there's all kinds of apps that we'll talk about in a little bit that actually encrypt messages to make it harder to see what's being discussed. It allows them to advertise the victims with anonymity. And now in the age of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, traffickers are utilizing that to pay for the ads. Johns are utilizing it, sex purchasers are utilizing it to actually purchase the sex. So electronic funds are allowing traffickers to be able to move their money and minimizing risk of losing it or being discovered. So Samantha was finally seen at the age of 22 by a detective who realized that she was actually being sold for sex and that there was an issue of sex trafficking happening. Earlier you heard Guy Baker. In the video he showed, it was an Asian girl. Lowell, his video had an African-American girl. Andrea's daughter's Caucasian, all-American family. And Samantha, she's Caucasian as well. And I point that out because it's important that we realize that this can happen to any race. Sex trafficking does not know geographical, socioeconomic, gender, or race. It can happen to anybody. So Deliver Fund was actually asked by law enforcement in the city in the desert southwest to help them find Samantha's trafficker because they were having difficulties doing that. And so I want to play this video for you. It's Samantha's story. You'll see her kind of, darkened out. She gave us permission to utilize this because she wants more people to understand the issue from a survivor's voice.
Because they sweet talk. Like, that's what the whole Romeo pimp's about. They'll sweet talk you. They'll make you think that, like, you're doing it because you love them. Like, if you love them, you'll do that. But some guys are like, oh, if you love me, you'll have sex with me. No, this one's like, if you love me, you'll go sell your body for me. And then they take all your money. They're supposed to take care of you. But it's all a form of control. When I first started working, I would have breakdowns. In the middle of a session, I couldn't do it. Till finally, I kind of just separated me and who I am when I'm working. Otherwise, I would go crazy. I would lose it. You numb your mind. The thing about heroin is, at a certain point, you'll do whatever it takes to get it. You need it. They get you where you're dependent on them for it. So you need them to survive, basically. I remember one time I was just outside smoking a cigarette and someone asked me for a lighter and he had somebody watching me. I got beat for that later, and it was just because someone asked me to use my lighter. Because I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody. When we went out, I had to tell him my order to tell the waiter. I couldn't look at anybody. I had to look at him or the ground. And if you messed up in public, then you were gonna get beat as soon as you got back to the room. And he'd make sure nobody heard. He'd turn up the TV and turn on the shower. And if you cried or screamed or anything, then he would take you out of the room, and you never knew if death was gonna be an option. Never knew. It's an epidemic. It's an underground epidemic that nobody has any idea about. Because when they see an escort or a prostitute, all they think is a drug-addicted whore that lives on the street. They don't think about the story behind it. They don't think about, is she being forced to do this? Does she have to do this? Is she getting beat if she doesn't do this? If I could wave a magic wand to solve this problem, it would just to have all the people that used to turn their heads away from the girls that are on the street corners or on the websites. It's for them to reach out, to look, to open their eyes to see us, instead of turn the other way.
What were some of the things that you heard Samantha say that would clue you in that somebody might be a potential victim in your community? She was told not to look at people. She has to look down. And Guy mentioned, I think earlier this morning, that if you, and I apologize if he didn't, I might have gotten mixed up with what he said in the law enforcement training yesterday, but when a victim looks at a guy, that's a signal, I'm available, I wanna jump ship, basically. So they very specifically are told to look down. They cannot look at men in the eye. And if they do, as Samantha said, you get beat. We were involved in helping law enforcement with a trafficking situation where the trafficker had actually murdered the victim, dumped her in a park, and said that that was to be a testament to the other girls of what would happen if they made the same mistake. These guys aren't fooling around. This is their money. It's their wealth that these girls are messing with, and it's all a form of control, as Samantha said. That's why at Deliver Fund, we feel like, and we believe wholeheartedly, that traffickers are the nucleus of this illicit market. And we counter human trafficking by equipping and training our law enforcement officers with technology and software, because this has become a cyber issue. This is on the internet, and as I said earlier, traffickers are evading law enforcement by using the internet and technology. And so our goal is to be able to provide law enforcement with these resources that are specific to finding human traffickers and human trafficking activity online, so that it can decrease the time it takes them to build a case and go arrest a trafficker. We believe that to effectively fight the human trafficking issue, that we have to go after the trafficker and support the victim to get the help that they need. Because if you think about it as a business, without a human trafficker, there cannot be a victim, can there? So if you take the trafficker out of the equation, there's not a victim, there's not somebody to sell them. There's also not a commodity then for the sex purchaser to buy, is there? So in the prevention side, as parents, as educators, as caregivers, we really need to help empower the kids to be able to understand that this issue exists and to avoid falling prey to this horrific nightmare. So a lot of what I want to talk to you now about is how we do that. How do we empower ourselves as the adults in the lives of our children to be able to prevent the next Samantha from falling victim? Well, we do this by, one, first, we have to accept that this happens in our backyard. And hopefully after everything you've heard today, you believe that, yes, this does happen here in the United States, and yes, it does happen here in Missoula, Montana. It happens across the state of Montana. The next thing I want you to think about is we need to know the indicators, what to look for. We have to educate ourselves as the adults in the lives of children to be able to see the problem in our community, to be able to spot a potential situation. Because it's a technological problem now all over the internet, we need to get familiar with technology and apps. We need to understand what these traffickers are utilizing in order to enter the back door into the lives of our children. And then as parents, we need to start monitoring these electronic devices. And then additionally, we should be educating our kids on how to understand what human trafficking is, how traffickers actually will recruit them. And then we also need to know, how do we report this if we see this happening in our community? So we're going to take the rest of the time to talk about each of those individually. So first, know the indicators. So on an academic level, are they unengaged all of a sudden? Has their performance declined in school? Are their grades dropping? Are they missing school a lot? Or have they even unenrolled in school? All of a sudden they're just gone and you don't know where they've gone to. Behaviorally, are they avoiding contact now with people? Are they exhibiting highly sexualized behavior? Do they show up with new and expensive clothing or handbags or shoes? Are you seeing an increase in lying? And are you seeing an increase in short-term memory loss maybe? A lot of I don't knows. And obviously with teenagers, I mean, I have a 15-year-old, she's my youngest, and a lot of times I'll get the I don't know, and I have to dig a little bit, but that I don't know, we have to really do our job to dig in until we truly know it's I don't know. Emotionally, are you seeing depression set in? Are they seeming withdrawn from their family or from their friends? Maybe they were an athlete and maybe they've kind of quit sports. Are you seeing an increase in anxiety or fear in relationships in the school setting with maybe male students? Are they exhibiting that highly sexualized behavior? And maybe with male adults, are they kind of fearful? How do they interact with maybe the SOR in their school or other law enforcement that they come across? Are you seeing that there's a frequent amount of running away happening? At a social level, are they talking about an older boyfriend or even a girlfriend? Women can be traffickers too. It was talked earlier about the bottom girl. Oftentimes, traffickers will utilize other girls to recruit girls because they have an easier access to them. Socially, do they have a very low self-esteem? Are they talking about a lot of trips? Are they talking about, yeah, we stayed at this hotel, and no, I know that hotel, we were there a few weeks ago. Why does a child travel to that many hotels? That's a red flag. Are they carrying a prepaid phone? These burner phones are another way to evade detection because they're not actually tied to a Verizon account or an AT&T account. How about physically? Do you see some new tattoos or markings on them? Guy mentioned the crowns. Crowns are really a big thing with these traffickers. And oftentimes you'll see the crown with maybe initials scrolled or the word daddy tattooed. You might see barcodes. I think those are getting less and less and less. We have a board member at Deliver Fund who actually has a tattoo company down in Miami, and she removes the tattoos for victims of trafficking, or she utilizes her team members to help turn that tattoo into something that will help her forget that that tattoo was indicative of that time in her life. The tattoos are used to signify you're my property. That's the point of it. Are they overly tired? Are they falling asleep in school? Are they oversleeping and are tardy a lot at school? How about, are they chemically dependent? Are you seeing that? Are you seeing signs of maybe some physical abuse, bruising? Do they flinch when you go to just, maybe put your hand on their shoulder or something like that? Are they losing a lot of weight? A lot of times these traffickers will be so controlling that they'll tell them when they can eat and what they can eat. So are you seeing them looking malnourished? So next we have to get familiar with technology. Who here in this room, like when the smartphone started, I was just like, it's too overwhelming. I'm not a technology person. It's just too much for me to know. Can anyone in this room relate? Yeah, like it's changing by the minute. There's a new app, or there's a new website, or there's a new trick, with cell phones. And how many would concur here that kids are smarter at technology than adults? Yeah, like I'm even hearing schools are offering coding classes for kids. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, quite honestly. But this resonated with me. It's like when technology started to really advance, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. So getting familiar with technology means that we have to understand social media. How many people here have a Facebook account? Okay. How many people here have an Instagram account? Okay. How many people don't have a social media account whatsoever? 3 hands. 3 hands. That tells us something. Social media is used by traffickers to recruit and groom their victims. How do they do that? So they're looking at the posts. Now, kids right now are saying that Facebook is for old people. You can determine what old means as far as age-wise. I'm not going to go there because I'm 49 and I don't think I'm old, but my daughter says I'm old. But if you take the child who's lonely and she's posting on, say, Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram, how she doesn't have any friends, she never gets asked to the dance, that's something a trafficker is going to pick up on. If she's posting, or he's posting even, maybe that they hate school, they're not popular. Maybe they're posting, I hate my parents, I just had a fight with them, I'm gonna run away. Any of those little cues are things that in our social media posts, traffickers are actually trolling that, looking for those vulnerabilities. They also might even go so far as to watch for posts where maybe a child says something about the latest iPhone. Oh man, the iPhone X is so cool. I can't wait till I get one. I would do anything for an iPhone X. Well, there's an invitation. So the traffickers are going to look for the vulnerability that the children are exposing in their social media posts. The other thing that we have to be aware of in social media is, do we have to prove our identity? How do we know that that Justin Bieber picture is actually Justin Bieber? How do we know that that 17-year-old boy, that photo on his Instagram profile or his Facebook profile is actually him? How do we know he's actually 17? How do we know he's not 40 or 35 or 21? How do we know? We don't. Pimps also prey on not only the loneliness in our children, or maybe the need for one's family and our foster care children or our runaways. But they also go after offering fake jobs. Oh, you want to be a model? I'm with a modeling agency in New York. I could give you a job. There was actually just recently a news story where a couple of girls were actually saved by an airline person who was like, this isn't right. You have one-way tickets. You don't have any identification. Something's wrong here. And come to find out, it was really a bad situation that these girls were potentially getting into, and her intervening actually saved their life. So kids are falling prey to this false promise of being a model or becoming famous and having acting jobs, things like that. So obviously, Facebook, we know about that. It's for old people, supposedly. Instagram is popular with kids. Here's the other thing. How many of you know that kids are doing Wristograms, which are their real Instagram account, versus a Fistagram, which is a fake Instagram account? So some of the younger people are like, yeah, I know about that. People my age are like, what are you talking about? Kids are making fake Instagram accounts to hide from their parents. So they'll have one Instagram account that their, mom and dad are friends with me, and this is what they think I'm posting. But then they also have a second fake Instagram account where they only let certain people into it. So they're figuring out ways to hide things. Snapchat. Why do kids like Snapchat? Yeah? Everything disappears. That needs no explanation. Everything disappears. Some of the social media accounts that you may not, how many have heard of Whisper? Okay, a few people. How many have heard of Tagged? Just a few people. Again, so Tagged is similar to Facebook, but it's intended to meet new people, and it actually normalizes connecting with strangers. Whisper is kind of similar to Snapchat. It doesn't necessarily disappear, but your photos and your videos, you can all post them anonymously. What happens when you think you're doing something anonymously? Are you conservative, or do you get a little bit more risky? Kids get a little bit more risky, don't they? So when I was growing up in the mid-70s, I was taught about stranger danger. Don't go to the park, don't talk to strangers, don't be convinced that they have this cute doggy that they've lost and they need your help to go find it. Don't take candy from strangers, don't go anywhere with strangers. How many grew up in that era? So why are we not now teaching internet stranger danger to our kids? Why are we not reinforcing the seriousness of internet stranger danger? Helping our children understand that there are people who want to do bad things to our children. It's not that we don't necessarily trust our children, it's we don't trust other people, and we need to keep them safe. So recruiting, as I mentioned, happens online. The social media posts, as I said, clues traffickers into how they could approach a victim and exploit that vulnerability that they've made public to the world. These are some of the things that we've already talked about. Is there an absent father? Have they been abused? Do they lack friends? Are they fighting with their parents? Do they long for a boyfriend? Do they need to earn money? Is there a low self-esteem? Are they an aspiring actress or a model? The other thing that we have to pay attention to is the fact that if you take foster children, for example, and they've aged out of the system, who's taking care of them? Where are they staying? What about a job? Are they old enough to get a job to support themselves? It's really hard. So that's a prime way that traffickers can actually target our foster children who have aged out of the system, because they have a need, a very basic need that's not being provided. Hey, I've got a place for you to stay. Just come on over. Warm bed. You can just hang out till you get on your feet. It's a very easy way for them to hook a child. Samantha mentioned heroin. Heroin is very commonly used in sex trafficking. The reason is because if the victim doesn't know she's going to be trafficked, one, it's a way to kind of make her incoherent while you're transporting her to the location you want to take them. They wake up, They're being told they have to sleep with this guy, and then they have to sleep with another one, and another one, and another one. And the victims that I've been able to interact with have told me they end up choosing the heroin because it's the only thing that gets them through the horrific things that they have to do. And it also helps them stay awake because, as Samantha said, she only got 4 hours of sleep a night, if that. So these traffickers are running these girls tooth and nail to the bone. They don't give them a break. They tell them when they can eat. If they want to get a Diet Coke at the hotel, they walk down and get the Diet Coke for them or walk with them. They don't let them out of their sight. This is their commodity, and they're not going to lose their commodity. Text messaging and messaging apps. So traffickers will find a victim on social media, start a chat with them, and then say, hey, do you have Snapchat? Or hey, do you have WhatsApp? Because they want to move the conversation to a platform where their conversation is going to be detected, where messages will disappear, or where they're encrypted. So there's an intentional plan in the process of how they start this whole thing and move it from one social media platform to another. At a recent training that we had for law enforcement, I actually watched a law enforcement officer start a conversation on Facebook with a potential trafficker that they were concerned about. And he literally to the T, asking her questions, and then when you could see he wanted to take it to the next level, he said, do you have a Snapchat account? So they're very deliberate in what they're doing. These are some of the text messaging and messaging apps. WhatsApp, how many are familiar with that? Okay, so it's an encrypted messaging system. GroupMe, ever heard of that? Kik, anybody ever heard of that? Telegram, Line. So not very many people are familiar with these apps. And if you look at the app, does it look very nefarious by the icon? No, not really. So as a parent, you may not really be concerned because, hey, they're just wanting to communicate with their friends, so no biggie. How about disappearing apps? Apps that are purposely anonymous. How many of you are familiar with those? Not very many people. So this phone screenshot, those are all calculator apps. Did you know there were that many calculator apps? Do you know that these calculator apps are called vaults? You type in a number and maybe like an equal sign, and it opens up a vault where you can hide photos and videos and text messages. But hey, when your parent looks at your phone, they just think you're doing math homework. Nope. So what I encourage parents to do is set limits with the calculator and say the only calculator allowed on your app, on your phone, is the one that is the factory app that came with your phone. No additional calculators. So some of the keys here that you can see, high calculator. There's a calculator with a plus sign, a percentage sign, there's an abbreviation. So they're taking the word calculator and they're adding to or deleting from it. So that should give you a little bit of a red flag. Snapchat, we know those disappear. Confide is encrypted. And that also disappears if somebody, so with Snapchat now, kids are getting really smart and they're screenshotting certain snaps, right? Well, with Confide, if you use that and somebody screenshots it, it actually disappears before they can screenshot it. So they've taken it one step further. Secret photo vault, again, I look at that icon and as a mom, I'm like, it's probably some design thing or something. I don't think it's anything bad, but unless I actually looked into it, I wouldn't know that it's actually a secret vault to where things can be hidden from me as a parent. Whoops, wrong way. How about photo and video sharing apps? So years ago, Musical.ly came out. My daughter had it. She loves music. She wants to be a singer. She loves to do videos, things like that. Well, in the news recently, how many of you heard about the 8-year-old girl who was using Musical.ly and got messaged inappropriately by a predator? It's in the, it was in the news. So something that we think is harmless. Oh, it's just for fun. They get to, make little videos. It's so cute and things like that. Well, what we don't realize is people actually have access to publicly comment on those videos. So it opens them up to bullying, opens them up to suggestive messages, take your shirt off, things like that. And kids, they don't have the brain development as teenagers to be able to make those decisions in a mature way. They get pretty impulsive, don't they? Lively, same thing. Tumblr, Periscope, again, it's those live methods of streaming video. How many of you have daughters or sons who go to do sleepovers? What are they doing at midnight on their phone on, say, Musical.ly or Periscope in their pajamas? They don't realize maybe they wear the little camis to bed and they're streaming live video, and all of these people can kind of come into that video from all over the world and watch them in their little camis or whatever else they're wearing. Our kids don't understand what's happening when they do this. How about online gaming? My boys, they grew up on Xbox, PlayStations. Minecraft is really popular now. Again, Minecraft, like Musical.ly. It was thought to be this really cool online video game that kids were actually doing something constructive with. They're getting approached in chat rooms on Minecraft from people who don't have good intentions, who are not posing as who they really are, and they're propositioning our kids. And we don't even realize this. Chat rooms and dating. These are intended to meet strangers and hook up. Yubu used to be called Yellow. It's just a yellow square. If you saw that, would you think there was anything wrong with that app? I wouldn't. It's actually the Tinder for teens. Did you know that? Tinder for teens. So if you don't know what Tinder is, it's a hookup app. Swipe left or right if you like or don't like. So it's intended to connect strangers who want to maybe hook up. Meet Me, Blender, Spot a Friend, Monkey, Ask FM. Quite honestly, like Monkey, it really disturbed me because that's like a little kid's app. It looks like a little kid's app with the cute little monkey. Who would ever think that there's anything wrong with that app? Same thing with Blender, the little pretty flower. Who would ever think? But that's where we have to start doing our due diligence as parents and looking into what these apps are. And you can easily do that by going on your own phone and your app store or even on the internet and just type in the name of the app and it'll pop up all this information about it. So we have to start doing our due diligence to know what is on our children's electronic devices. So then we go into actually monitoring the electronic devices. So what are some things that we need to keep in mind? How many of you have kids with a smartphone and you have actually installed the parental controls? You've gone in and you've set parental controls on the phone. Anybody? A couple people. How many people didn't know that you could do that on your phone? Few people. So if you have an iPhone, you can go into your settings, the general, and there's parental controls. You can set a password. And when you go into the parental controls, it opens up a list of all the apps. And you can actually say yes or no by sliding the little button to allow it or not allow it. You can set music. So if you don't want any explicit language music, you can actually set the setting for the language. You can set the rating for movies, TV. So this is a really important, just simple step. If your child has an iPhone or even an Android, they have parental controls that you can do. And then when you put your password in, your child doesn't know the password, so they can't change anything. Simple thing to do. In the App Store, if you have an iPhone and you have the Family Share plan, did you know that you can set it that all apps have to be approved by this person before they're downloaded? How many of you don't know that that exists? So if you have Mac products and you have iPhones, you can actually, in the Apple App Store, You can connect your credit card to the account. You can list the other people in your family that you're going to share, and what kid's going to want to pay for their own app. So you can utilize that as, hey, we're all going to share this. But it also allows you the ability to set that you get an alert if they want to download an app. It pops up in your phone. Susie wants to download X app, and then you can say yes or no. That simple. So it allows us to control what they're downloading. If you are like that meme that I showed you where technology is like so overwhelming, you're like, I'm never going to remember all this. I don't know how to do this. Who's familiar with YouTube? Most people. It's pretty easy. It's becoming kind of the next Google, honestly, for information. Our kids go on YouTube all the time in this country to find out how to jailbreak phones. They do. You can find anything on YouTube. You can find things like, how do I jailbreak my phone? You can find things on how do I hide apps from my parents? You can type about any of these things that kids are trying to do to not be discovered. Well, parents, we can do the same thing. You can type in, how do I find hidden apps on iPhones? And it'll take you through a tutorial. So take the technology that we feel like our kids are using to evade detection and things like that, and use it for your own benefit, your own good, and your own knowledge as well. We need to randomly check our kids' phones. Kids are getting smart. They might have a conversation. They might delete some of the threads of the text. Well, if you're going through the phone in a conversation and the conversation all of a sudden drops off and then picks up with something else, you probably know they've deleted some sections of that. So randomly check the phone. Require that your kids give you their password login information for apps and email accounts. Set down parameters for if you don't, then there's consequences. As far as monitoring apps, there's some really great software that we can put on our electronic devices, from phones to iPads to laptops to desktops. So how many of you know that monitoring apps exist? Okay, quite a few. How many of you use them in your home? Only one person. So I'm going to enlighten you today with a monitoring app that I personally have used. And I know this is being broadcast, so this is no longer like private information, but mSpy. I would look that monitoring system up. It's a software that you can actually download onto your phone or your electronic devices. It was actually invented for parents to monitor their kids' electronics. This is like what I imagine being in the CIA was like, because you can see all the text messages, whether they were deleted or not. You can see phone logs. You can see WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchats, photos, videos. You can geofence. So if there is somebody that your child wants to hang out with and you're like, yeah, that's an off-limits person for us, you can actually mark that area on the map, and it will send you an email alert that they entered or exited that location. It gives mSpy, the letter M as in Mary, SPY. So it's pretty robust. So you have to decide if you want to go that far. And there's a myriad of other really great apps out there that you can utilize as well. But this is one that I can personally speak of that I think is really great. ProtectYoungEyes.com is another great site that's specific for parents to understand what are the dangerous apps out there. They keep it pretty current. They also have some software that you can utilize for monitoring. Check your child's phone. We talked about that. Actually, don't just look at the app. Click the app. Find out what the app's about. Research the app. Common Sense Media is a great website because they also, again, they rate apps, they rate movies, and all this kind of stuff that gives you, as a parent, the information that you're looking for in order to protect your child. Require, again, that they provide the login information. We already talked about that. The other thing is, as Andrea mentioned too earlier, Are you asking your child to hand over their phone at a certain time at night before you go to bed? Our kids think, or we even think sometimes, that there's no harm in them charging their phone in their bedroom. Well, we're finding very quickly that there is potential harm, and there's lots of research out there that's showing how electronic devices are very addictive to our kids, and so they don't have the maturity level brain development-wise to be able to make those decisions. So if their phone is in their room and they haven't turned it off, and they hear that ping, they're going to want to find out who just pinged them. So these are some of those monitoring software apps that you can utilize. Circle is another one. Circle is actually a device. Kind of looks like a tower, a little white kind of rectangular tower. You can actually hook that up into your internet system at home. And what I like about Circle is you can actually see each person's devices when they log into Wi-Fi. So not only are you seeing your child's devices, but you're also seeing their friends' devices. You can turn off Wi-Fi at a certain time in your home. You can, even remotely, if your child, you know, obviously nobody's child in this room would give them attitude, right? If they're giving you attitude on the phone and you're just like, yeah, well, I'm sorry, but you know, I'm restricting your electronic device from your phone. You might be at the grocery store, boom, you shut down the internet from a remote location. Pretty cool, huh? So these things are out there to empower us as parents. Again, we don't want to like instill this, you know, lack of trust in our kids. We don't want to take it from that kind of a measure, but we really want to drive into there are people out there that you don't know who want to do things to kids and do bad things to them, and we're trying to protect you from it. We want to help you make good decisions. We want to help you be successful. We want to help you not become a victim of some of these things. So this is for your good. Next, we want to educate our kids about sex trafficking. It's a difficult thing. Whoever wanted to have that sex talk with their kids when they were, you know, a teenager? Not very many people. So, oh, sorry, yeah, did you have a question?
I was just wondering, like, you're talking about all these monitoring apps and stuff, but what about, like, people who are smart enough to use those monitoring apps against our kids?
Like, give me a scenario.
Sex traffickers get smart enough to hack into those systems, and then they're able to track our kids.
You mean remotely hack into the system? Well, you've got to be a pretty dang smart trafficker if you know how to hack into a phone, honestly. I mean, who in here would know how to remotely hack into a phone or even a laptop? So there is, you're right. I mean, that is a good consideration. But if you're looking at it and you see things that are unusual, that's your alert. But you have to really understand electronics to know how to hack into something, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, definitely something that you would probably have to consider. So it's really important, again, to educate our kids, but how do we educate them on this very heavy, uncomfortable topic that we as adults are just getting comfortable with ourselves, right? Like, okay, it's time for the birds and the bees talk. I can kind of handle that. But how am I going to talk about sex trafficking? Gosh, I don't even know the terminology to use. I don't know how to educate my child. Like, how do I do this? Well, 50 Eggs, that's all right. 50 Eggs is a film production company. They're also the ones who did the documentary I Am Jane Doe that we're showing tonight. They teamed up with a nonprofit called My Life, My Choice. And My Life, My Choice actually helps children who are child victims of sex trafficking. And so they wanted to put out there a curriculum that would be helpful for kids to learn the signs of sex trafficking and to be able to be educated in a way where they would be empowered to be somebody who would prevent it from happening to themselves or their friends. And so it's really a great tool that can be used in the schools. I'm going to show it to you. I have permission from them because I have a license, but I've actually secured 3 licenses for the state of Montana. and I've been working with Guy Baker and the task force here. Guy and his chief actually met with your school system and presented this actual curriculum to them. And so if you like this film, it'd be probably really helpful to be able to go to your school district and say, we need to start bringing this into our schools, and this is the curriculum that we would like you to utilize. I don't get any financial benefit from this. I want to make that clear. I just think this is so well done, and you will too, I believe. The animator is Alex Sokolov. He's the one who did the original Toy Story. Who here does not love Toy Story, right? I mean, it's done so well, and it gives basically a lesson plan for the teacher, lines it all out, what questions to ask and what to do and exercises. So it empowers our educators to be able to have this conversation in the schools. If we're going to teach sex ed in our schools, if we're going to teach abstinence or safe sex or whatever your school district is doing, why can't we talk about sex trafficking and how to stay safe? So let's watch this.
Hello out there in the real world. Lady J here in our happy and bright toon world. Think of me as your very good-looking fairy godmother. Now, I know you're all too old for fairy tales, but I want to tell you all a tale. Once upon a time, far, far away in a magical land, there lived a child named Little Red. Actually, the land isn't that far away. And it isn't very magical. It's your land, your place, your town. And if we're really gonna keep this tale real, my little Reds, let's get in formation. This tale is about all the little Reds out there, and trust me, they're everywhere. Girls, boys, however you self-identify. Little Red can be you and you and you. She's the girl on the school bus, the girl in your class, or the boy in the park. She's your sister, your cousin, your best friend. Little Red is all of you at the beginning of your journey, excited to pack up your hopes and dreams and head off down the path of life, a path that will lead to the future. You follow me? Little Red is not headed to grandmother's house, 'cause there isn't any grandma in this tale. 'Cause this tale isn't about some destination. It's about the journey. The journey we're all on, called the path of life. Now, the path of life for every little Red has lots of obstacles. And it can sometimes feel scary and lonely. Sometimes really lonely. But my little Reds, you need to stay on the path, even if you don't always know where it's going. Even if it seems easier to step off, stay the course, one foot in front of the other. The path might not always make sense. The path might seem uphill for way too long. Now, do you see this, my little Reds? Gucci, Armani, Prada, and Louis Vuitton, iPhones, parties, the high life. But trust me, nothing in this life is free. You hear me? Nothing. And one more thing. Everyone knows little Reds on their great path always have to watch out for wolves. Now, wolves come in many shapes and sizes as well, and most of them don't look like wolves. They may be a friend or an uncle or stepdad. They might be younger, and some of them are poppin'. I mean, macadocious, swankalicious. Beware of macadocious. Some wolves start out by saying, "You're so beautiful, you could be a professional model." Beware the wolf with the camera. Some wolves may want to take you for a ride in their car. Do I even have to say it? Beware the wolf with the fancy wheels, because he'll take you for the wrong kind of ride. Some wolves are even women who want to take you out for a little fun. She might even be the friend who always seems to have money, who runs with the fast crowd. Beware the she-wolf. Some wolves live in chat rooms or online, and some may even seem like your friends, but they're already in the life, ready to snap you up. Just like all you little reds, wolves can come in all shapes and sizes. Do I have your attention now? Can you hear me, my little darlings? These wolves are out there, promising you love, showering you with gifts. But know this, all that glitters most definitely is not gold. They really want to introduce you into the life. So now I'm gonna lay down some truth. Listen up, my little reds. There are 4 major tactics wolves use to get you off the path. Number 1, brute force. That's the one you hear about in movies and on TV. It happens, but not often. Number 2, threats. That's when a wolf finds out something about you he or she can use against you. "I'll hurt your little sister and make your life miserable if you don't do exactly what I tell you to do." Number 3, some wolves may just want to be your friend. "Hey, I know you ran away. I did too. Ooh, it's cold out here. Let's go back to my place." Number 4, some wolves prey on the heart, talking about love and romance. This happens a lot, and this is how it goes. "I love you, baby. You're my everything, baby. Oh, I need you, baby. Baby, baby, baby." Then, later, because they are a wolf, they will most definitely change their tune. "Let's go a little further, baby. The rent's due, baby. I owe a guy, baby. Do it for me one time, baby." Watch out, my little reds. You may not even know you're in the life until it's too late. Then these wolves will make you do things you never thought you would do. They may hit you for real. They may drug you seriously. Remember, my little reds, a wolf will steal anything from you that he can. Your love, your body, your future. And you'll be in so deep before you realize what that wolf really took. And it happens so fast, your head will spin. And when you least expect it, that nasty wolf, that low-down, conniving, miserable wolf will sell your soul to others. Now I know what you're thinking. This could never happen to me. I don't know any wolves. But guess what? It can. We all want to fall in love and live the dream, but false promises can quickly turn into nightmares if you don't keep your eyes wide open. Open them up, little reds. Keep those big eyes wide open. I know, you may feel scared to stand up to the wolf, but if something seems too good to be true, trust me, you have just encountered a wolf. And if that happens, protect yourself, whatever it takes. Find an adult you trust, your mama or maybe a teacher, a coach or a nurse. And if you need to, try a cop. You are not alone. And that goes for all your friends out there too. If you see a little red straying off the path, say something. You just may be saving someone. So keep your eyes open and stick to your path. One foot in front of the other. Even if you are scared and alone, you are stronger than you think. more powerful than you can imagine. You are not what has happened to you. Little Reds need to stick together. And if for whatever reason you do find yourself introduced into the life, you can get out and get back on your path. Do it however you can. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning.
So as you can see, the video was adapted after the Little Red storybook. Obviously, traffickers are the wolves, and Little Reds are our kids. So the voice, the narration is actually Jessica Chastain. She joined this really amazing project. 10 survivors of sex trafficking between the ages of 14 and 21 actually helped write the script for this. And so this comes from survivors. And the goal of this was prevention and awareness so that kids understand the tactics that traffickers use. Next week, I think it is up in Great Falls. Actually, My Life, My Choice has a representative that's going to be there doing a training on, I believe it's April 5th. So their Human Trafficking Task Force is sponsoring that. So if you think that's a really great thing that should be in your school system here, reach out to Lowell or Guy Baker and ask them what you can do to help advocate for that in your school system, especially with Missoula being the second highest for sex ads in the state. You know, this is a really important issue to get out there. So lastly, report what you see. Detective Guy Baker, he's just really a leading force here in town. And then Lowell Holkalter, he's also part of the task force. So they say contact Guy if you have a very significant kind of suspect situation going on that might need law enforcement's attention. And really, if it's an emergency, just call 911. That's going to be your quickest response. There are some hotlines out there and whatnot. We have to be careful because those hotlines are national hotlines and they're not going to get an immediate response here in your community. And it takes a trafficker just a minute to be gone. And so every second really counts in these situations. Let's see, it's 5:10. I apologize, I'm over time. I probably don't really have time for questions. I know you probably feel like this whole day has been drinking from a fire hose. So, you know, hopefully you'll take some time to go home and decompress a bit. We really hope you come back for the I Am Jane Doe documentary. Bring your kids or your family members if you want, but that's going to be a really great opportunity to educate your family and other people again about human trafficking here in the United States and the technology piece of CDA 230 and how that's played into all of this. So thanks for sticking it out here with me and have a great evening.